This is the homework assignment for 512, day 3, solving quadratic equations. So we need to remember that when solving quadratic equations, we want to factor, but however, we want to make sure that it's equal to 0. So step 1 is always set your equation equal to 0. So right now it's equal to -5, so I'm going to get rid of that -5. If I add 5 to both sides, that would make that equation v squared minus 7v minus 8 equals 0. Now that it's equal to 0, I'm going to look at that left side of the equation. I'm going to try to factor it. First thing I'm going to look and see, is there a greatest common factor amongst those three terms? And there is not. Is it the difference of squares? No, it doesn't have two terms. Is it a binomial square? No, second sign is not positive. So I'm going to do a times c. I can do a times c because there are three terms here. My a value is 1. It's the coefficient of v squared. And my c value is -8, which gives me -8. Factors of 8 are 1 and 8, 2 and 4. My signs are different because I look at the second sign and it is negative, which tells me the signs are different. And then I look at the first sign and that tells me that the bigger of the two factor pairs is negative. 8 is bigger than 1, so that one gets the negative since those signs have to be different. You get -7 and -2. So my middle value is equal to -7. So I'm going to use these two factor pairs in breaking up that middle. So my v squared plus v minus 8v minus 8 equals 0. Now I'm going to factor by grouping. I'm going to factor out a v, and I get v plus 1. I'm going to factor out a -8. Notice that my first term in my group is negative, so I have to factor out a negative, and that gives me v plus 1. They both have v plus 1, and I get v minus 8 left over. Now that it's equal to 0, we like that because the product of two numbers that equals 0, that tells me one of those numbers must be equal to 0. So I'm going to separate and I'm going to find out what v value, when it's added to 1, would equal 0 and what v value minus 8 equals 0. So now we have a simple one step. I'm going to isolate the variable and get v equals -1. I'm going to isolate the variable and I get v equals 8. So my solutions are -1 and 8. Next problem. Again, it's not set equal to 0, so I'm going to add 6. I'm going to line it up with the constant. 6 is a constant, so I'm going to line it up with the constant on the left side. That gives me x squared minus 2x minus, what's that, 35 equals 0. It is not a difference of squares. It is not a binomial square. And so I am going to do a times c. 1 and -35. 1 times -35 is -35. Factors of 35 are 1 and 35. 5 and 7. Signs are different. Bigger is negative. That gives me -34. -2, which is my middle. X squared plus 5x minus 7x minus 35 equals 0. I'm going to factor out an x from the first pair. I'm going to factor out a -7 from the second pair. And I get this. I'm going to pull out the x plus 5, and that leaves me with x minus 7. I'm going to set each one equal to 0. And I'm going to subtract 5. I'm going to add 7. And I get -5, 7 as my solution. Same thing for number 3. I'm going to add 8. R squared minus 2r minus 8 equals 0. Not a binomial square. It kind of looks like a binomial square, but it is not. And I'm going to do a times c, which is 1 times -8. I get 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Signs are different. Bigger is negative. Didn't even notice that all of those were the same. And we get -2. So r squared plus 2r minus 4r minus 8 equals 0. Factor out an r. Factor out a -4. We get r plus 2, r minus 4 equals 0. R plus 2 equals 0, r minus 4 equals 0, minus 2, add 4, and your solutions are -2, 4. And you're going to start getting really good at this where you can go as fast as I am. Number 4. All right, we're going to set it equal to 0. We're going to move that 8 over. P squared plus 6p plus 8 equals 0. 1 times 8 is 8. 1, 8, 2, 4. Signs are the same this time, and both are positive. So we get 9. We get 6. So we have p squared plus 2p plus 4p plus 8 equals 0. Factor out a p. Factor out a 4. We get p plus 2, p plus 4. And when you get here, yes, you're going to get good enough where you can look and understand what the solution is going to be mentally. So subtract 2, subtract 4. Numerical order, -4, -2. All right, this time we don't have a constant on the right side. This time we have a variable, but we're still going to move it and get rid of it. We're going to move it to the left side. And when we list, notice that this is in standard form. It goes n squared, n to the first, and then my constant. So make sure that you are placing your trinomial on the left side in standard form. So that's really important. There is no greatest common factor. It's not a binomial, it's not difference square or binomial square. So 1 and 42, factors of 42, 3 and 14, 4, no, 5, no, 6, yes, 6 and 7. And that's it. Now you're around the horn. Signs are the same, both positive. 43, 23, 17, 13. So we get n squared plus 6n plus 7n plus 42 equals 0. We're going to factor in an n, factor out a 7. You get n plus 6, n plus 7, n plus 6 equals 0, n plus 7 equals 0, minus 6, minus 7, -7, -6, numerical order. Number 6. All right, same thing. Let's move it. Those are unlike terms, so that's why we can't combine those. So I just place them in standard form. There is no common factor. It is not a binomial square or difference of squares, so I have a times c. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Signs are the same and both positive. 7 is my middle, so I'm going to use these two. B squared plus b plus 6b plus 6 equals 0. Factor out a b, factor out a 6. I get b plus 1, b plus 6. And at this point, you can tell me what the solutions are. But we will do this because it only takes, I don't know, 15 seconds. Minus 1, minus 6, and showing your work will help you with your teachers. All right, here's a good one. So now we're going to move it, and it's got a pair that you would line it up with. So I'm going to line it up with the constant. I don't know if we've already done one like that, but hopefully. And that is plus, I think that's 3 equals 0. Ooh, this will be fun. All right, so no greatest common factor. It is not a difference of squares or binomial squares, so we still have a times c. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Signs are the same, and both are negative. Negative 7, negative 5. Negative 5 equals my middle, so it becomes 2r squared minus 2r minus 3r plus 3 equals 0. We're going to factor a 2r from here, which gives me r minus 1. We're going to factor out a negative 3, which gives me r minus 1. And they both have r minus 1, and that leaves me with 2r minus 3. Now, as you get better, you will still be able to look at that and tell me what the solutions are. But since it's the first one, you should be writing it down. So you're going to add 1. That was the easy one. Everybody probably knew what that solution was. This is the harder one to see. But as you do them, you get better, and you'll see that it equals 3/2. I would leave it as an improper fraction and still in numerical order. Number 8. Let's add 3. You get 2n squared plus n minus 6 equals 0. No common factor, not difference of squares or binomial square. A times c. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. 1 and 12, 2 and 6. Hello. 3 and 4. Signs are different. Bigger is positive. That's 11, 4, 1. That's equal to my middle. So I'm going to use those. Minus 3n plus 4n minus 6 equals 0. Let's factor out an n. Let's factor out a 2. And you get 2n minus 3, n plus 2 equals 0. 2n minus 3 equals 0, n plus 2 equals 0. Let's add 3. 2n equals 3. Divide by 2. N equals 3/2. That's a horrible 3. Minus 2. N equals negative 2. So my solutions are negative 2 and 3/2. Good. Number 9. Again, we're going to combine constants. 2r squared plus 3r minus 9 equals 0. So not a perfect square, not a binomial square. So we're going to do 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Signs are different. Bigger is positive. That's 17. That is 7. And that is 3. So 2r squared minus 3r plus 6r minus 9 equals 0. I'm going to factor out an r. We get 2r minus 3. Factor out a 3, which gives me 2r minus 3. 2r minus 3 times the quantity r plus 3 equals 0. 2r minus 3 equals 0. R plus 3 equals 0. Add 3. Divide by 2. R equals 3/2. A lot of 3/2 as an answer. R equals negative 3. Negative 3 comma 3/2. Let's see if we get a little crazy. Still not crazy yet. All right. Add 8k, add 8k. Those are not like terms, so we just get 8k squared plus 8k minus 6 equals 0. Now, that was 1, set equal to 0. 2 is GCF. This problem does have a greatest common factor. So 2 goes into each of those. You get 4k squared plus 4k minus 3 equals 0. We factored a 2 from each of those. And now we're going to check and see if it's the difference of squares. No. A binomial square. No. Then we'll do A times C. A is 4, C is negative 3. Factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Signs are different. Bigger is positive, smaller is negative. And this equals my middle. So we will factor this. We'll rewrite this as 4k squared minus 2k plus 6k minus 3 equals 0. We're going to factor by grouping. So we're going to look at this first, and we're going to factor out a 2k, and we get 2k minus 1. Ooh, that's different. We're going to factor out a 3, and you get 2k minus 1. So the 2 on the outside stays on the outside. Then we're going to group what they have in common and what they have left over. Oh, look at those answers. Now, this time we have 3 numbers when multiplied equals 0. So one of these still has to equal 0. The constant can't equal 0. However, we're going to set the other ones equal to 0. And then we're going to isolate the variable. Divide by 2, we get k equals 1/2. We're going to subtract 3. We get 2k equals negative 3. Divide by 2, k equals negative 3/2. So my solutions, constant, no, 1/2, oh, excuse me, numerical order. All right, number 11, let's add that over. 6m squared plus 10m minus 4 equals 0. There's a 2 that we can factor out. That gives me 3m squared plus 5m minus 2 equals 0. 3 times 2 is negative 6. 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Signs are different. Bigger is positive. That gives me my 5. So that becomes 3m squared minus m plus 6m minus 2 equals 0. Let's factor an m out of those first 2. We get 3m minus 1. We'll factor out a positive 2, which gives me 3m minus 1. And I get 2 times the quantity 3m minus 1, m plus 2 equals 0. 2 can't equal 0. 3m minus 1 equals 0. M plus 2 equals 0. Add 1. 3m equals 1 divided by 3. M equals 1/3. That's a new one. Minus 2. M equals negative 2. My solutions, negative 2 and 1/3. Oh, look at that. Add x squared. So I'm moving this over, and we talked about this in our notes, but not necessarily in the homework. Your coefficient of x squared, or whatever your squared value, x, m, k, whatever it is, always has to be positive. So when we have 3x squared plus x squared, we're adding like terms. We combine their coefficients. So we have 3 and 1. That doesn't become 4x to the 4th. We're not multiplying. So that gives me 18x plus 18 equals 0. So we see that the coefficient of x squared always has to be positive. Now we can factor out a 2, and you get 2x squared plus 9x plus 9. Oh, we're so close to a binomial square. was hoping one of these would be a binomial square, but it is not. So 2 times 9 is 18. 118, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Signs are the same, both positive. I see that's going to equal my middle. We can jump to that. Don't be afraid to do that. 2x squared plus 3x plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Group them. We're going to factor out an x. You get 2x plus 3. Factor out a 3. You get 2x plus 3 equals 0. 2 times 2x plus 3. Pull that out and you get x plus 3. Set each one equal to 0. 2 can't equal 0 because it's a constant. A variable, however, expression can equal 0. Minus 3. 2x equals negative 3 divided by 2. X equals negative 3 halves. Minus 3. And my solutions are negative 3, negative 3 halves. And that is it. That was pretty good time. So those are your solutions, just to check, make sure that I did it right, because I could have done it wrong. Hope you did well, and come and see me if you have any questions.